We are primarily focused on corporate office, life science, medical manufacturing sectors, but we do a little bit of a scattering depending on who the client is and what they need, but that's our primary focus.
Sorry, Corinne, is this, okay, there we go.
Yep, you're good.
It's not letting me go forward. Oh, is this, I'm sorry. For some reason, it's letting me go backwards, but not forward. So one second, bear with me.
Oh, that might be the ending slide too.
Is that what it is?
We'll just give everyone.
There we go. That's what it was. I'm better in the morning than I am in the afternoon.
Oh, you're fine. So we focus a lot on interior fit up, given that a lot of the buildings that we work on are existing, but we also do full new construction as well. And you guys probably recognize some of these logos. This is some of our repeat clients. That's really what we're focused on, is building relationships and coming alongside companies for a long journey so that we can service them, whether they just need one room worked on or if they have a large project. That's really what motivates us, is to, you know, just continue that relationship and service whatever they need, have a consistent team, that they, you know, we get to know them, they get to know us, and they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time that they go to do something. This shows some of our scope. Recently, a lot of our work is local, which is good. We're not trying to travel the world, but in our past, we have gone to a lot of different states and countries. Again, based on our repeat clientele, they like to bring us around to different places, again, so they don't have to reintroduce a new architect in different cities. We've just gotten our registration wherever they need, and able to, you know, keep their standards and go around wherever their projects are. So these are some before pictures. The top left is an illustration of why my 6-year-old daughter does not want to do interior design, because sometimes I have to measure men's bathrooms. And as soon as she found that out, she was like, oh, I'm not being a designer. But this is Merchant's Fleet up in Hooksett, New Hampshire, completed end of last year. 50,000 square feet. This was actually completed with an M3 member, Votes Butler, general contracting. And so we're walking into basically 50,000 square feet of tired, dated, not very appealing space. And this client is driven by their 3 core values: service, innovation, flexibility. And this space definitely did not reflect that. So if you want to flip. So the following slides just kind of show what we did with the space. We had low ceilings for the most part, without, you know, the ability to really raise them anywhere. We had some time constraints and really tried to work with them through that. And a primary focus for them was really creating a visual experience when you walked in. They entertained clients like Amazon, so they really wanted an innovative feel in their space. So we used some really creative lighting. We did custom branding, as you can see on that innovation going up the wall, and the car going down. They're a fleet leasing company. Textural materials, and also integrating a lot of function as well. So in terms of being able to write on a lot of different surfaces, having sliding glass partitions that they can have multiple layers of project meeting notes as they go through, and doing it in a very sleek way. I think there's one more, yep. So a lot of collaboration type spaces where they're coming together in teams and working to integrate all of their branding colors, which was red, blue, and yellow. The next slide is a more local hotspot highlight here. So this is the before pictures at my Chronic in Tewksbury. This was an extremely fast-paced project. They built out 100,000 square feet in just over 4 months. So we were very condensed on our timeline here, and this is what we are walking into. Essentially open, some dated office spaces, certainly not conveying the message that they are also innovative, and their tagline, "When passion meets innovation," you would not think that walking into the existing space. So they were actually taking 3 offices that were in Massachusetts and combining them into one. They incorporated 60,000 square feet of clean rooms, specialty labs, product testing spaces within an assembly area, and then the remaining was office, lunchroom, conferencing. So I haven't done my final photos there, but we actually were teamed up again with 2 M3 members here. So this is built out with Erling Construction, and we also had Avid engineers on the team. So there's just a few pictures here. We're hoping to maybe highlight this project with Stephanie and Aaron and at a future M3 event. You can see some of the expansive space that they built out there. So just a few examples to kind of keep you guys thinking about what we can do and how we can help you. The things that don't show up on a presentation like this are things that we do all the time, which is, a 5,000, 10,000 square foot office fit up, a small lab project. We really get excited about, certainly working within the city and local projects, and it does not have to be a 50 or 100,000 square foot job for us, but we're really relationship driven and, would like to partner with people.
And I can say I've been to my Chronic spot, and my husband works there, and despite the fabulous job that you did on that, he's still downstairs in our dining room working. So hopefully we can get him back there.
Get him into the office. I know, we're working, we're helping, trying to help some people get in there. DCU's also in Chelmsford is trying to look at those, spaces and offices and cubes and see what that's going to look like. So we'll see what's next.
So, well, thank you for that. I think we have a few more minutes before we're going to move over to the webinar part of this. I see Jody White from Lowell General Circle Health, as well as where's Deb Bergholm-Petka as well from Circle Health. Thank you both for joining us. I know that there are a number of other folks who jumped on. Anyone want to jump on the networking before we move over to the webinar? I know Ira's here from Lantheus as well, and Bruce over in Westford. Good. Seems like this is a shy group today.
Greetings, Stephanie. How are you doing?
We're doing okay, thank you. And thank you all for joining the discussion as well too. And maybe, Erin, is it time? Maybe we can move over to the webinar part. Okay. So, the way we're going to work it is we're going to end the networking piece of this and change this over to the webinar format. Again, I'd like to thank AHP Architect for sponsoring today's event. And so what we're going to do is we're going to move everybody off screen during the webinar session. And then after the panel discussion, around 2:45 or so, we're going to then bring everybody back on screen for a more of a casual conversation. And with the, if Bob, Judy, Jody, if you're able to stay, that'd be great. I think maybe Senator Markey's office can stay for a little while after. I think the senator needs to leave around that time as well too. But just to have more of a casual conversation afterwards would be fabulous.
Happy
so
to definitely stick around.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We do appreciate it. And as we move people off screen and as people log on to the webinar, I want to take time to thank you all for joining the discussion. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Stephanie Cronin. I'm the Executive Director of the Middlesex 3 Coalition. We are a public-private partnership, a regional economic development organization. We represent 10 municipalities and about 150 business members and partners working together to address the business development concerns that are difficult for one community and one company to address on their own. I know Senator Markey is going to be joining us in a few moments, but while we're waiting for him, if you can take the time and put in the chat box, kind of sign in, if you'd like, your name, your company, your contact information, and just kind of keep some of this, the networking going as well too. And I think the Senator's office is here as well too. So I'll give them a few minutes to connect. And also I just want to let you know that the coalition, we have a number of upcoming events that we've been planning with what's happening in Chelmsford, Lowell, and Tingsboro. That information will be coming out. We also have our transportation and workforce development subcommittee events that we've been planning as well too. So stay tuned for that information, as well as the future of life sciences and focusing on workforce, making certain we have the workforce in this region for to make certain that the life sciences can grow in this area as well too. So that's really my opening remarks. And Claire, I see that you're online. So I guess I'm gonna see if the Senator is here, or if we're gonna give him a couple more minutes. And
Yeah, I know this is Claire is on right now as a panelist. I don't see the Senator quite yet. I'm keeping my eye on just to make sure we don't miss him. Claire, I know you're muted and have your video off. I don't know if there's anything you want to add, but we'll get started when he gets here.
And so I guess I'll kind of give you the agenda at this point as well too. And Judy and Jody and Bob, thank you for being on the panel as well too. I think what we'll do is when the Senator comes, he's going to give a few minutes of updates on what's happening in his life. And then we'll bring the panel back on and kind of get a casual conversation going regarding healthcare, education, and infrastructure, internet improvements as well too. So that's how we're going to be working it.
Sounds great.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Erin, you let me know when this all comes together.
Yep, I'm just keeping my eye out, so I'll let you know if I see anything here.
So Stephanie, now you know what it's like on radio to fill that dead space. Huh?
Well, Bob, I know you're here, so I can always count on you to fill some of it. How are things going over there?
Very busy, very, very busy. You know, it was interesting, the question earlier about how municipalities are reacting. Some of them are better than others, to be honest with you. Some of them see what's going on and are stepping out of what the usual format is. And some still are 8 months ago or 6 months ago. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. And Jody, thank you for joining us as well too. And just want to take the time and thank you and your staff for all the work that you guys have done at Lowell General over the last few months and keeping us safe. And I'd love to hear more about what's going on at Lowell General and how we can make certain we're ready for the next round as well too.
Oh, it's nice of you, Stephanie. Thanks. And trust me, we're ready. We're I think you guys know I chair the Massachusetts Health and Hospital Association. We just had our board Zoom this morning about the fall and working with the governor and the secretary to be, as an industry, ready to go. So we're in good shape, and Circle and Lowell General are doing really, really well, coming off a very busy time. But 1,250 nurses and almost 4,000 people rowing hard to keep everybody in good shape, and so far so good. It's an amazing team of people, and what's been most amazing is the support from the communities. It really has been heartwarming to see the food, the cards, the wishes, the prayers, just the support. Bob, I was on with all the town managers every week for an hour to give them an update on what's going on. And boy, oh boy, were they behind us and helping and securing PPE and calling for us, and it's just really good stuff. It's
That's one of the comments that I've made. I was recently asked to comment on the local cable stations about what's going on. And one of the things I made a point of is a lot of people don't see what these people have been doing behind the scenes. They don't realize how dedicated and hardworking and committed a lot of the town managers, administrators, staff have been during this time. And I don't want to bust your bubble or burst your bubble. I hope we don't have to call on your readiness in the fall. That's my hope.
That's our job. We're well prepared. Actually, it'll be much easier in round 2. We've learned an awful lot of lessons, and we've got some better things in place and a lot of capacity built in. And
no round 2. No round 2. Round 1 was enough.
So I believe the senator was just on. And Aaron, can you give me an idea as far as is he having trouble connecting?
Sorry, just doing behind the scenes, so I thought I'd hide my camera. So I believe that was Jim from his office, Jim Cantwell. I just received the message from Claire from his office that will be here in just a few minutes. So if anyone else, and maybe Judy wants to give us kind of an update what's going on at MC, or however you would like to handle it.
always love to hear from Judy on the community college.
Well, I wanted to just tag on, Jody, just to let you know that one of our staff members had a baby in this COVID environment at Lowell General Hospital, and I had an opportunity to see him face to face for the first time yesterday. And he spent a lot of time telling me about the tremendous care that he, his wife, his new son received. And anyway, it was just beautiful to hear. Your team did it.
Babies keep coming.
COVID or not, exactly, they're coming.
Babies keep coming.
And if you're gonna be born, Lowell General is a great place to be born because you guys really know what you're doing. He couldn't have been happier.
I see the senators here.
Yes.
Oh, Senator's here. Oh, great.
So thank you, Senator, for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. We're just catching up.
Oh, well, let's be honest, okay? Zoom is the organizing principle of our lives, and it probably will be for the future too. It's like we're all just addicted to it. I think I go to more meetings now by far. It's a long way from Malden to Lowell to some other city. Now, hey, you got to go to Lowell next year.
And I find they start on time, they end on time, and we don't have traffic to worry about nowadays too, right?
Can I say this? In real life, people say, oh, the senator must be caught in traffic. It's 2:04. Now people go, hey, where's the senator? It's 2:04. You should already be zooming in. So it's more, punctuality is valued much more greatly on Zoom than it is in real life.
Well, I thank you for joining us here. It's a pleasure to have you, and thank you for all your work too, especially during these challenging times. And so I look forward to the panel discussion that on economic development issues that we're going to have in a few minutes. And I know that your time is tight, so I'd love to hear more about what's really going on in your world, a little behind the scenes, outside the news. And I know it's considerable. I know just looking at your bio brief, it highlights a lot of the work that you are doing. And if you don't mind, I was going to just read the bio brief just to kind of set the stage, and then we can get into it as well too.
Okay.
So Senator Markey is a consumer champion, a civil rights defender, and a national leader on energy.
You know what though, Stephanie?
You sent this to me.
You don't even have to go to it.
Well, you know what I was going to say? What I was going to say is actually, we put the full bio in our registration list. And I'm going to encourage people to read that because it's chock full of all the programs and initiatives and what you've been working on for the last 40 years. And it's a lot. So I thank you for all your work. And maybe with that, I'll just encourage people to, not now, but at some point, to read your bio brief. And we'll just get right into it. And I will welcome and introduce Ed Markey, our U.S. Senator, and I have to also say a fellow Boston College alum. So thank you for coming.
What was your major, Stephanie?
Political science, believe it or not.
Well, same as me, so we had to find other things to do with that degree.
I think you found it.
No, you have too.
Thanks.
So thank you, and thanks to everybody who is on this Zoom call. Much appreciated. My father went to Lawrence High School. My father grew up at 88 Phillip Street in South Lawrence, and first floor of a triple decker. When I ran for the Senate 7 years ago, he came down on the train when all those mills were shutting down. So he came down on the train in Malden. He got a job running a little corner store, and that's where he met my mother. And your father lives where your mother tells him he's going to live. So she said, we're from Malden, you're going to live in Malden. But he was a Lawrencean at all times, even in our house. This is the house that I was raised in, that I'm in right now in Malden, that my father, who drove a truck for the Hood Milk Company, and my mother raised me and my two brothers. And we all went to Boston College. I went to Boston College Law School as well. As a commuter, however, there wasn't enough money in our house for 3 boys to be going to BC simultaneously. Even tuition today would be 50 grand a year. That would be 150 grand coming out of this house just for tuition to be a commuter. And that's how much this world has changed and why the burden on these kids on these streets is so great. So I rang the doorbell at 88 Phillip Street to see who lives there now. And a Dominican family came out onto the porch. And the accents were different, but the aspirations the same for that Dominican family as for the Markey family. You know, and there were 5 children in that house. And my father's son is a United States Senator, you know, and I know how fortunate I am, because that wasn't on the scoreboard, you know, when the Markey story was being written. And it's because of all of the economic, educational, healthcare opportunities that I received just in this house in Malden. Then my father, who worked harder than I'll ever work, a milkman has to be up at 4 to go do that work. And my mother didn't get to go to college because my grandmother died when my mother was starting her senior year in high school. She was senior class president, but there's 3 younger sisters, so she had to take care of the 3 younger sisters. She had to be a single mom, essentially. It's an immigrant family, mother and father off the boat from Ireland. So she could do calculus for fun at the kitchen table with me, but she never went to college. So much of our economic development over the last 50 years is this conscious effort to invest, you know, invest in people, invest in infrastructure, invest in technology, to have pretty much a business plan, you know, for the long term in our country. So you're maximizing people's God-given abilities as well. And so I feel very rooted up in Lawrence and that whole, you know, economic corridor that is on the call here today. And down in Washington, 2 months ago, the House passed the HEROES Act, which was just a realistic assessment of where we were and how much more funding would have to go into cities and towns, hospitals, testing, PPE, you name it, across the board. Mitch McConnell at that point said, it's not going to happen. It's a blue state problem, and I'm not going to have red states subsidizing blue states for a problem they should be able to control. My mother always said, Eddie, try to learn as many lessons vicariously as you can because it's prettier that way. Well, the red state governors decided, no, they were going to learn all the lessons right from the get-go. So now we have just a pandemic that has broken out in red states. And notwithstanding how much ideological opposition that exists inside of the Republican Party to federal assistance, I think that their mayors, I think their city councilors, I think they're going to be screaming. I think their hospital CEOs, I think all of them are going to be screaming for more help. We can see it every night as the lead story across the country. So I'm going back next week. We'll be in for a couple of weeks to determine what is that relief package that we are going to be able to pass. And I think a lot of Republicans are starting to realize that it's not a red state or a blue state issue. It's the United States of America issue. And so I'm getting hopeful, not optimistic, but I'm getting hopeful that some bipartisanship just might break out. To the extent to which it does, hard to say. Obviously, many of these programs, including the PPP, the Small Business Relief Package, that expires on August 8th. There's still over $100 billion in for any small businesses that still might want to apply. But many of the other programs as well are going to be expiring. So what we're going to be advocating, the Democrats, is that there be $875 billion to $1 trillion that is allocated to the states and to cities and towns so that they don't have to lay off teachers, public safety, healthcare officials. We've got to get that funding back down to the local level because that's kind of the foundation for a community. And if you think about it in the context of the president calling for the reopening of the schools, Betsy DeVos, by the way, I think the winner of worst Secretary of Education of all time, is advocating, well, kids just have to go back to school while they're advocating no funding for testing and no money for the cities and towns to be able to keep the teachers from being laid off, all the other personnel in schools from being laid off. It's a recipe for a disaster that would only take about 2 weeks after school reopened. Within 2 weeks, the numbers would just be spiking all around the world. So we're going to be trying our best to work with them reasonably, just to say it's time for us to put the funding where we know it needs to be. And that includes massive funding for personal protective equipment. We're running still in Massachusetts, nurses are still being asked in Massachusetts right now in hospitals, maybe Jody can talk to this, are still being asked to reuse their masks, you know, and that's just contrary to all previous to coronavirus medical advice. And down in the South right now, some of them are being asked to wear the same mask for a couple of weeks. So we need a massive funding and production of protective equipment. You can't reopen schools or other institutions of that nature without massive testing. So we're going to be advocating for a massive multi-billion-dollar increase in testing funding. And the same thing is true for contact tracing. Absolutely indispensable. It's not a question. It's not a question of how much people have confidence in the businesses or other institutions. It's how much confidence do the American people have to go back. If you don't have consumer confidence, if you don't have buy-in by parents, then it's just not going to work. So you can set a date, but it's all going to be determined by data. And the data is going to be how safe actually is it. So that's what's about to happen. It looms as maybe the greatest epic battle of my whole career in the next 2 weeks. We're not going to leave until they give. We're not going to leave until they give. They're going to have to give. They only wanted to give $100 billion to hospitals back in March. We said $150 billion. Took 6 days. They caved. They didn't want to put in any money for testing. We said $25 billion. We had to wait a week. That's the second time. They caved. So we're going to just be tough on them. We're Massachusetts. We're not just the Bay State. We're the brain state. We're the science state. So that's going to be my job on the floor over the next couple of weeks. And why don't I just stop there, Stephanie? And then
Yeah, I think that's a perfect place.
or insights, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you. No, that's a perfect place to stop as well too. And I focus in on the hopeful comments as well too. And there's certainly a lot that we need to take away from this. But I'd like to bring the panel into the discussion, if I may, and introduce them to you as well too. Starting with Jody White, the President and CEO of Lowell General Hospital and Circle Health, and Judy Burke, the Executive Director of Institutional Advancement at Middlesex Community College, and Bob Buckley, Senior Partner at Reamer and Bronstein. And I thank them for joining us. I think they're great representatives. You talked a lot about education and healthcare. I know infrastructure, internet improvements, those are all issues that are on our minds. I know you've touched upon them as well too. So maybe I can hand the conversation over to you and we can get a dialogue going with this.
Okay, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you.
Senator Bob Buckley, how are you?
Hi, Bob. I'm doing great, Bob.
Good, good. We do a lot of economic development. I was at the beginning at Middlesex 3 with Stephanie and the great Judy Burke. But One of the things, and I think you'd have to agree with this, in the last 3 or 4 months, that's what, let's say 120 days, we have fundamentally changed the way we live, the way we work, the way we commute. And I don't think we're going back in a lot of realms. I think we discovered a lot about who we are as an economy, how we can perform, how we can be innovative and creative as to the performance of our daily duties. I know in a law firm we certainly have. The question I have, and I hope your colleagues, when they put together an infrastructure bill, are looking at innovative infrastructure, such as, thank God that the internet was as robust as it was, because if this had been 15 or 20 years ago, who knows what the economy would have suffered as much as we've suffered. But in some respects, having a strong or robust internet has allowed us to, in some respects, be seamless. But other technologies are going to come forward, and the infrastructure is going to have to be different than building bridges and roads and cabling and whatever you want to call it. And I just hope when you put together a bill that creative minds look at the flexibility, because as we go forward, we're going to have to be extremely flexible how we perform.
Yeah,
Because
thank you, Bob.
it's going to change education. Judy knows that. I mean, what the future of education is going to be, it's going to be profound.
Thank you, Bob. So I was the chairman over the telecommunications committee in the 1990s, and
I know that.
I'm the Democratic author
Yeah.
of the big 3 bills. Actually, there were 4 big bills. The first bill created the 18-inch satellite dish that would put more pressure on the cable industry to become more expansive. The second was moving over 200 megahertz of spectrum for the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th cell phone license. It was analog and 50 cents a minute, and you didn't have one. It looked like the brick that was in Gordon Gekko's hands in Wall Street. And then the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Not one home in America had broadband in 1996. Not one home had broadband. When President Clinton signed my bill, that was February. By 2000, just 4 years later, we had something called the dot-com bubble. But another way of describing that was, it was a massive expansion of broadband capacity, fiber optic and wireless technologies. That, yeah, pets.com didn't make it, but Amazon and Hulu and YouTube, they all got created because we went broadband. So that revolution continues. What I did in the 96 Act, which the cable and telephone companies were not happy with, but that was the condition that I attached to all the rest of the legislation, was a program called the education rate, which is so far a $54 billion program, which actually pays for the Lawrence kids to be online on their desk. Lexington already had it. Newton already had it. Right? Andover had it. But what about the kids in Lawrence? What about the kids in Lowell? What about the kids in Chelsea? So that's my program, and that's why it's the fastest single educational technology deployment for rich and poor kids. It happened simultaneously because of that, because of my provision in the law. Well, now kids are at home, and the scary number is, just goes to your point, Bob, 12 million American kids do not have the internet at home. 12 million kids, and we know who they are. They're black, they're brown. Well, there's another way of describing them, our workforce of the future. So if they don't have access to it, so I'm advocating for $4 billion to go into this relief package, because we don't know if it's going to be 5 days a week the kids are in school, or 4, or 3, or 2, or 1, or none. We really don't know right now. But we know it's not going to be 5 days a week normal education the way it's always been, and we have to make sure kids have the technology at home. And then it raises this larger question of where are the gaps in our society in terms of broadband? Because it's not ubiquitous. Poorer communities don't have it as much. Rural communities don't have it. The further away you get from downtown, is the less well it may work. So I'm advocating, as part of an infrastructure bill, that we put in tens of billions of dollars for ubiquitous broadband build-out. and that we just recognize that this past 4 months that we've been going through is a preview of coming attractions of what our society is going to be like, and that we should anticipate and include as part of any infrastructure bill a broader view of what that role that broadband is going to play in telecommuting, in schooling, in medicine, in everything.
And I think that's critical, because we honestly do not know if it was a year from now what the world's going to look like, and we have to be flexible and adapt. And to the extent that you define infrastructure as those types of investments, I think you position not only this country, but our presence in the greater world economy much better, and make us much more attractive.
So what I did in 2009 as part of that huge relief package in 2009 when we were in the Great Recession, I actually built into that law a requirement that the Federal Communications Commission had to produce a national broadband plan for every sector: education, transportation, healthcare, every sector of the American economy. And then that became the blueprint for what our federal government then thought about in terms of building it into the planning, the broadband planning for every single sector of our economy. So what I'm going to try to get built into the coronavirus package is a new broadband plan. That is, let's update this thing post-coronavirus. Let's now have the Federal Communications Commission, the National Telecommunications Information Agency, put together a brand new plan. Especially, like you're saying, Bob, in terms of how all of our behavior has been modified over the last 4 months. And it's not all going to stick, but there's a pretty substantial part of it that's going to be affecting.
Look what we're doing right now. Look what we're doing right now. The opportunity to have this discussion as we're all over the place. Right?
So
I'm
if
calling,
I could,
yeah.
I'm calling for one, funds so every kid has it at home for school, $4 billion. Calling for tens of billions of dollars for new infrastructure, and 3, for a national broadband plan to be put together so we have a comprehensive insight as to how our country has been fundamentally changed. So thank you, Bob.
So since we're talking about education, I wanted to bring Judy Burke into the conversation. Unless Judy, did the senator answer all your questions?
Well, I still have more questions, honestly, Senator. You did give me some good information there, though. And I just want to say thank you so much as a board member of the Middlesex 3 Coalition for being here today. Really appreciate it. And just love your passion and your depth of knowledge on all these different topics. So thank you for that. I guess my question really is around, uncertainty. The unemployment rate is unstable. Our students are uncertain about how they're going to finance coming back to the community college. And you mentioned earlier about, a $50,000 price tag for Boston College. As you know, coming to Middlesex Community College is probably about $7,500 a year. So it's much lower price tag. But even at that, it may as well be $75,000 a year to our students in some cases. So I know that there's, I know you're working so hard. I know, but I'm wondering, is there hope? Is there help for these students that are really trying to get an education and get back into the pipeline to help these employers?
Well, first of all, as you know, Judy, we put $275 million into the package. The first relief package, and I think Middlesex got some of that money. I think.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
You guys might have got a couple of million. I don't remember how much you got.
We did the COVID. Yes, we did.
Yeah, so we did that just to make sure that it was there, and I'm sure you passed a lot of that on to students to help them.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
With their bills, yeah. So, so we're going to have to consider that again in the next 2 weeks. What are we going to do? And again, it's the kids, and so, when I think about how did a milkman have 3 boys and all 3 of us went to BC? Well, again, it was a different era where, my father couldn't pay for it. He didn't pay for any of it, but I could work driving my ice cream truck. I could take out student loans. I could pay back the final loan after BC and BC Law School when I was 36 years old. I paid it in my 3rd term in Congress. I paid back my last student loan, but it was relatively modest by today's standards. It might have only been $5,000, so it might have been like $20,000 or $25,000 in today's numbers. Well, that's not a kid today. it's like absurd, the amount of debt that they have to go into. And you know what I've learned, Judy, is that so many kids, that is, I'm still in Malden, and the Irish, the Italian, the Jewish, families that were here, they've moved to Swampscott, they've moved to Linfield, they've moved to Wakefield and Stoneham, or Bill Ricker. I think everyone moved to Bill Ricker, I think, from Malden. But the southern part of Bill Ricker, everyone from Lowell moves to the northern part, and from Malden to the southern part of Bill Ricker. And now across the street, there's 2 Haitian families. Next to them is 2 Haitian families. Next door is a Chinese family, another couple of Haitian families. And they're killing themselves. They just don't have one person working one job, like my father, the milkman. Now the other spouse is working, and one of them's working 2 jobs. So that's 3 jobs in a house. And the kids here, even if they got into BC, they couldn't go there unless they got a full scholarship. They couldn't even go. That would be like the income for the whole family would be $55,000, right? They can't afford to, send one kid for 1 year to school. And so the kid has to make a decision. Where am I going? They're going to go to Middlesex Community College. They're going to go to UMass, Amherst, or if they're lucky, and they have a little more money. But ultimately, we need free community college, and we need free public universities in Massachusetts. We should be the leader on this. Just move towards it. Be realistic about who these kids are, and that population is just going to be coming through. Increasing in numbers. In Malden last year, here's Malden High School last year. Malden High School, we're 65,000 people in Malden. 25% white, 25% black, 25% Asian, 25% Latino. We're the most diverse high school in America. So 25, 25, 25, 25. Or, to think of it another way, what America is going to look like in another 20 years. So get ready for it. Start planning for it, right? Let's get ready for it. So what we're going to do is, on the floor next week, Judy, we're going to ask for $175 billion for K through 12. We're going to start right there. K through 12. So the money's going right back into the schools. And that's also for PPE, by the way. Going to be for testing. We're like looking at this in its totality. The Democrats are trying to be realistic, but we need additional funding for colleges as well. And we're also going to propose a $10,000 across the board student loan debt forgiveness. Just to say that every kid in America, 10,000's off the top, just gone. You don't worry about that, okay? Just so that they can, and again, those are the kids least likely to get a job right now.
Yes.
You just go right down the economic order to see how low the unemployment rate is for college graduates, even right now. It's only at like 3% for college graduates, but then it just keeps going up and up and up for African American, for Latinos, and they're the ones that are most likely to have the kids. Then they won't have an income source coming from their parents or from themselves, because youth unemployment is going to be 30, 40%, and then they're just going to defer their dream, and ultimately they just might have to give it up. And we, as planners for the government, we have to say, no, that's our workforce. These kids are smart. And look I'm here in this house. I'm not here because my mother wasn't smart. She was the class president. It's like bad things happen to her family. Like my father, he was a smart guy, but he was a milkman. We had student loans. We tried to put a system together to make sure their children, who aren't any smarter or hardworking, and now we have a concomitant responsibility to make sure we put together the same plan. So that's what we're going to offer on the floor in the next 2 weeks.
Great.
We're going to be looking at educational institutions, K all the way through college, just saying we got to put the money in so we have these kids in a situation where their dreams aren't shattered in the same way in the 1930s, like the Markeys in Lawrence. I mean, it was shattered. The Lawrence Bank went under with all of the Markey savings. There was no FDIC. And that's it. My Uncle Tom, I'll just say this final story. My Uncle Tom had worked 7 years in the mills of Lawrence. He was like a foreman. My grandfather worked up there folding like the same piece of cloth for like 30 years. But his son, Tom, the oldest, got to be a foreman. He's 25. And he had saved up enough money to go away to Columbia University as a freshman in 1929. And in 1930, the Lawrence Bank went under, and my uncle was back in the mills. He didn't do anything wrong any more than these kids did today, right? These kids didn't do anything wrong. So we just have to, protect him. By the way, he was a very sad man, my godfather. He was
Oh,
like
I
the
bet.
he was like the saddest man I ever met, and he was like
Broken-
8 years old on my father. But,
Broken dream.
you know what I mean? He was just a sad
Yeah.
man.
Well, it's,
Anyway, so that's my answer to you, Judy. I'm going to fight hard for those resources.
well, I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Judy.
Our students, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator. And I'm wondering if we can pivot the conversation to healthcare as well, too. I know you mentioned funding for PPE, and I assume Jody White's ears perked up with that information, and that's welcome news if that happens. Jody, do you want to jump into the conversation as well, too?
Definitely, I'd love to. Thanks for inviting me. Senator, thanks for joining us today. I super appreciate your hard work and all the stuff that's happening in Washington to help us battle our way through this. When you opened up, you said we're facing this single, probably largest challenge of our professional careers. It certainly is in mine, as we've asked the healthcare community to step up and take great care of patients while at the same time, turn off all of our elective business. And we did it for the right reasons. We preserved our PPE, we preserved our staff, opened up our beds, and but it's leaving us in quite a spot. I also chair the Mass Health and Hospital Association, and we got a quick off-the-cuff number now looking at where the hospitals and Mass are going to land, and it's going to be about $6 billion behind at the end of all this. And that's not surprising when you turn off all your elective business. For Lowell General, it's about 40% of our business. Now we're coming back nicely, and there's a lot of lessons learned, but I thought just two things I might ask you about, Senator. And number one, it's in the vein of thank you, because the tireless work that's going on by way of the federal government to get relief to healthcare is nothing short of Herculean. The CARES Act is nothing short of Herculean, and the efforts that you're putting now on this second piece will be desperately needed and appreciated. So I want to make sure you hear that from me as the MHA chair, and certainly from Lowell General Circle. It's appreciated. But two things have occurred that we're going to be jumping on. The first is with the support of the federal government and the state, we are going to get some help and financial relief. And I know it's there. I remain optimistic, and thank you for that. The second thing is that we're re-engaging our workforce. At Lowell General, as an example, when the pandemic hit and we stopped doing a lot of things, I had to furlough 850 people. That's the worst thing I've ever had to do in my professional career. Now we've got most of them back, and we're getting back to work, and our imaging is back, and our surgeries are back. Patients are finally coming in. They've come in too late, though. Too many lower leg amputations because the people didn't come to the hospital. Strokes were down like 30%, and we didn't cure strokes. They were just happening at home and silently, and now folks are coming back. So we are working tirelessly to with MHA, something called Safe With Us, to get folks back to the hospital, back to care, and it's actually going quite well, and you'd be proud of us. We're working hard at that. But the second piece to this is lessons learned. And I'll just bring up telehealth as a great example. Here we are Zooming away, and I've learned to be the best Zoomer ever. Wasn't a good Zoomer before, but I'm a good one now. We've gone to 97% adoption in telehealth, and I'm hoping it sticks. I'm hoping we can partner with our payers. I'm hoping we can partner with our state and federal folks to help pay for telehealth, let it become part of the fabric of our country, let people access care in all new ways, and let's learn some lessons. Working with our payers in a different way, working to get pre-authorizations out of the way. We waste so much money in pre-authorizations. It's crazy how we do this back and forth. But above all, it's a new way of doing business. Governor Baker, Secretary Sutters have done amazing work here in the Commonwealth, and my hat's off to them. I had the opportunity as the MHA chair to partner with them on daily calls, and it's really been quite magnificent how they've helped Massachusetts steer forward. But PPE planning is essential. Testing, we were woefully behind. Hope we can get caught up. And your continued advocacy with respect to our patients and helping us to get some funding relief would be super appreciated. So thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, Jody, so much. How are you on PPE right now, Jody, in terms of masks?
We're doing okay. Early on out, as you mentioned before, we were reprocessing our N95s because there just simply wasn't enough of them. We were using the unit set up down in Boston. Worked well, but we're no longer doing that. Everybody's got, we're good with our gowns, we're good with our masks. I know MHA is helping the governor and the state to stockpile some, and I think we'll be in good shape going forward. It was rocky there for a bit, Senator, but we're in a good place now.
Okay, great. And that $6 billion lost across the whole state, it's easier for a Mass General Brigham to be able to absorb their portion of it. How about for yourself?
We won't be able to absorb that. There's no rainy day funds big enough. When I was losing $20 million a month on our way out, but
I say you were losing 20 in April. You lost 20 million. Is that what you're saying? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you turn off 40% of your business. It's not gonna. There's nobody to pay the bills. We tried to work with the payers, but that's a whole nother story. The bottom line is though that we've recovered nicely in June. Business is back. July is looking better. And I know that certainly with your help and with our other electeds, healthcare is a focus, and there'll be dollars that'll backfill this and help us a little bit. So I remain comfortable. And we've got a bright future with some lessons learned.
And you are right, Jody. We're going to fight very hard to put in more funding because, again, I think a lot of the denial is going to be over because the red state hospitals are going to be lobbying their senators now, saying, you know, they're suffering the same losses now that you did back in April or May, and I think that's going to help the politics of our ability to put in a larger number into this bill in the final 2 weeks of July. And I'm hopeful, but not optimistic.
Massachusetts, because Massachusetts, when you look at the numbers so far, and it's gotten a little bit better, but we were 50 out of 51 at the bottom on dollars in reimbursement. Hotspot dollars have started to show up. We got a few other federal dollars coming in from some 4 of our hospitals across the Commonwealth, but I hope Mass can get picked up a little bit.
So of the 850 who you furloughed, how many are back now?
All but roughly 100, and we ended up having to terminate about 85 employees.
Yeah.
You just can't, our workflow has all changed, and our ability to do the things we did before, it's just simply not possible. And I mean, there's good news and there's bad news. I think the good news in the pandemic is if we can get telehealth to stick, imagine the inroads we can make in behavioral health. Imagine the inroads we can make on access to care. Imagine the inroads we can make on physicians practicing at the top of their license. But the payers have got to be encouraged and incented to pay for it, because if it goes back to getting paid $6 or $8, nobody's going to use it. They can't use it.
Yeah. So yeah, my wife, I had my first date with my wife 36 years ago, and at the time she was a commander in the public health service. She had just finished her advanced training at Stanford Medical School, and then got a degree at the Kennedy School. So she's now in the public health service, a career public health service doctor. So I just met her. So what did I talk about on the first date? Well, I was talking to her about what she was working on, which was depression, suicide, and substance abuse, and how all of it has to get destigmatized and just turned into diseases that are treated the same way that physical disease. So that's her whole career. My wife wound up as a 2-star admiral and assistant surgeon general in the United States. And actually Clinton named her, she was the head of all women's health in the United States in the 1990s. So she ran it and kind of reinvented women's health, because they were still using a 6 foot male, 6 foot, 180 pound male as their model. So Susan, along with in Congress, Pat Schroeder and Barbara Mikulski, a few others, they really fought hard to just change that whole thing. So she's been telling me the last, by the way, she had me on January 22nd, write a letter to Trump saying, the coronavirus isn't here yet, please give us a briefing. It's gonna be bad. So I did that on January 22nd. January 27th, the coronavirus isn't here yet, please name a czar to handle this catastrophe, right? So she just kept saying, it's coming, like Paul Revere, it's coming, it hasn't reached Lexington yet, but it's on its way, please get prepared. And of course, we had a racist, criminally negligent president in the White House who was focused on the wrong things, and he continues to be. He's a science denier. And what she's been telling me, Jody, is that in the 30s, because of the Great Depression, dramatic rise in suicide and depression in the United States. And we have the tip of an iceberg here in terms of its impact on families. And telehealth can be a big part of this. Telehealth can really, scaled up, help a lot to deal with the scale of what could be unearthed over the next year or two in terms of the impact. There's almost like a PTSD quality to this. We can't really fully see it yet, but we all know how we feel being cooped up. But we know people who are in far more vulnerable situations personally who are going to be impacted. So I agree with you. Telehealth can play a big, big role. And those were the hearings, by the way, I had in 1993 and 1994, getting ready for the big 1996 bill. I would have the hearings, and I'd have a doctor at a big Boston hospital on the screen, and then to be a doctor in Iowa, in a remote Iowa town, and the doctor from Boston would be doing the consult on this operation, just to show what can happen if we go, and that was with an analog picture, but if we could go broadband, we could have 100% resolution, just imagine what we could do. So this is not new, but it's delayed in its implementation because it runs contrary to people's personal habits and orientations, right? But we've all had to change, and with it, we get a chance. I'm just going back to Bob's point, where let's put a plan together, and it should be across payments, like you're saying, and the whole gamut of issues. So thank you. And my answers are too long, so I apologize to you, Stephanie.
Stephanie, can I ask a question that someone
I
asked
think
me?
we have time for one more question. Is that okay,
Sure.
Senator?
Oh, yeah, please.
Perfect.
Senator, early on, there was discussion about revisiting SALT, state and local taxes deductibility. Is that still being discussed at all?
It will next year when President Biden gets sworn in and we control the House and Senate, and it's all blue, because it was a way to tip money out of the blue states and send it to its red states. So that'll be near the top of the agenda, especially if a Pelosi from California and a Schumer from New York, the two leaders. Okay, believe me, we have to rectify that injustice that was imposed upon us. So we can't do it this year, but it'll be on the agenda for next year. As we're talking about tax reform, and we're going to have to, and that'll be right there. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I don't know. Do you have time for one more question, or
I can do one more, yeah, and I'll make it.
And I'll throw it up to Judy or Jody. Do you guys want to throw something out?
I just have a question. Senator, what are you hearing from employers? Are you in touch? I mean, I'm sure you're talking to employers all the time, but are you hearing? Are they discouraged? Are they hopeful? I know
it's completely categorical. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're a financial firm in downtown Boston, you're at 100% employment right now. Right. Everyone's working remotely, and yet everything is being done. So for them, they can make the adjustment. Educated workforce, things are great. Right. If you're a restaurant, on the other hand, you're kind of desperate right now. Some have figured it out. They might have a whole area where they can have outdoor dining, but there's a lot of others that don't. And so restaurants, for many, it's going to be an extinction experience the longer this continues, which is why we have to have the highest possible, public health safeguards. So I guess I would put that at the two extremes. I have a young woman around the block here, and I said, "What are you doing?" She says, "Well, I'm in HR at a financial firm downtown. Are you working?" "Oh yeah, I'm working all day. I'm interviewing 5 people today for new positions, and we're looking for a new CFO, and so I'm doing all that work right now, and everyone is working all day long, every single day, and we've made the adjustment. But then I'll get a call really from the Mass Restaurant Association about like the devastating impact it's having. And I think there's 300,000 employees in Massachusetts, just in the restaurant sector. So I guess a lot depends upon which conversation I'm having, with whom.
Right.
Yeah. Can I make a comment on that, Senator? I live in the North End, and the media recently has been showing all the outside dining and how attractive it is. And it almost reminds you of the streets of Rome, and people are saying things are booming. We're helping them out. The optics are wrong, because what you're seeing now is a different clientele. In the past, it might be someone like myself or others who might buy the $75, $100 bottle of wine on occasion, not often. But now you have a younger generation. You have no tourists. You have a younger generation that will have a meal palm dinner and a glass of the house wine. And if you talk to the owners, they will tell you, we can't make it, even with outside dining. So the optics, you have to be careful with the optics.
Right. The restaurant industry itself is under, it's under a lot of stress.
Right.
Which is why we're going to have to talk about more help for the restaurant sector, without question. It's not their fault.
No,
we have to give them a life raft. We have to give them a life raft so they can make it through.
Extremely hardworking people who really make the city and make this region something unique. So it really is a difficult situation.
No, I agree with you 100%. But it's a tale. It's every industry has its own.
Right.
You know, if you're a barbershop, you know,
Right.
1 in 3 people might be coming in to get cut.
Right.
The other 2 are saying, I'm not going to wear a mask and have someone with a mask begin. I'll let my hair continue to grow. We're going back to the 1970s here, you know, in terms of guys with. I haven't had a haircut in 3 months now, and so it's industry specific, I guess I would say. But that's why we need more funding. That's why that 100 billion for small businesses should just stay there, not expire on August 8th. Let's leave the 100 billion there. Anyone else who's finally deciding they might need it, call my office and we'll walk you through with the SBA. We'll get it for you. Okay, just call me if there's anyone that is of interest in getting that kind of assistance. We definitely want to help you in any way that we can. So Stephanie, thank you. Thanks for the invite to be here.
I thank you. I know you have to jump off. You certainly have your work cut out for you. So we thank you for your time. We thank your staff as well too, and for all you're doing in Massachusetts. And good luck over the next few months in Washington. And we'll be rooting for you.
And again,
Stay healthy. Everyone stay healthy.
And if I can help anybody, you know, that you got, just please give us a call. We'll try to navigate through the red tape, the infrastructure to help you. Hospitals, restaurants, you name it, we'll try to help you. So thank you, Stephanie. Thank you to everybody else.
Thank you. And you've got a great staff too. Thank you very much, Senator. Appreciate it.
Thank you.